his version of the circle is the process of alchemy.
All right.
And then he just writes it in a different way. It's so awesome.
Yeah, I got like probably 800 hours.
Live. Get it out to your socialisms.
Dude, yeah, I don't have that many more hours in it lately. I haven't been playing a ton. But I love the videos. I watch everything Dark Souls, Bloodborne. Just because he puts so much effort, and he did, like I said, the snippets.
The Bloodborne analysis.
The object. They're so fun. It makes me wish I could play it, but I cannot stand it. Waiting for remaster. Mostly because I want the Elden Ring response time.
Yeah. Why? What's so special about that?
It's like their mechanics in Elden Ring are actually nicer than all the rest of the games. Comparatively.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It's like their mechanics in Elden Ring are actually not so much that you can actually notice it unless you're somebody that relies on iframes and predictable iframes. Like, when I watch the older games, I cannot catch like what people say, like where you have to keep dodging and all that stuff. I can't catch it as fast as I can in Elden Ring. And so that's why I say really the remaster. I can see it better because it's prettier.
Yeah. Blaze in the chat says, Ayo, let's go. Hey Blaze, I agree. Good to see you, buddy. Glad you're here.
I am deaf on ears right now. I got a new iPad and I'm transferring data.
Good.
Way longer than it said.
Good, because everybody should be able to hear us for the moment, even though we're backstage. We're not supposed to. We're supposed to be quiet.
Yeah. John?
Yeah.
If you ever want to experience a game with like lore that makes like the Bloodborne and Dark Souls and Elden Ring games look light on lore, I've posted a video to the 101 on BattleTech. This is like the bare minimum to like bar for entry to this fiction, and it is fucking dope.
I started reading last week the Horus Rising.
Oh, for Warhammer? Oh god, man, you got 40 books to go.
I think there's 65 in that series now, but the first 5 are the really important ones.
The first 5 and the last 3 are the most important.
Yeah.
Because the end and the death sets, that's what sets the entire series in motion.
The opening was just wicked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's some deep cut. My biggest thing is I really love the analysis that comes out of these. Because, like, as much as I like the games, a lot of them are, like, Elden Ring is too hard. It took me forever to find the boss.
All right, we're coming up on 6 minutes left. So everybody, say goodbye. We'll see you all over in 6 minutes. Tonight, we talk about why Monarch Episode 7 was super terrible. Then we'll also see if Apple TV's #1 instant classic hit Masters of the Air is really all that great, as well as talk some Star Trek and some pop culture news. All this on... And welcome back to your Tuesday night home for Monarch, Star Trek, and Masters of the Air. I am your host, Petey York, joined by Mr. Skoglioten.
Word.
And of course, next to him is Mr. Pollo Zapatos.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
And of course, our token pagan, no one cares about, of course, Mr. Corion, Witch in Residence.
Guten Tag.
Welcome. Yeah. Look forward to the nightmares and spells later in my sleep. Anyway, no, we all take turns getting Petey's screwed up version of love here at the Ryder Brothers. But we are also
have I mentioned that your wife's a saint?
Everybody does. Everyone ends up loving her more than me, which I'm like, okay. At some point, you just gotta stop caring, and the sooner you figure that out, the sooner life is more enjoyable. You still get disappointed, though. That's the weird part. Even when I don't care, I still get disappointed. No, I'm very happy that you guys are here, and of course, all of you tuning in. Drake and Blaze, good to see you, and those of you watching, we welcome. We are, of course, well, what are we, Corion? Why is this channel special, and why should people watch the Ryder Brothers?
Dude, I feel like I'm at a Passover dinner. Why is this night different than any other? No.
I like that.
Well, why is this show different than any other? Look, because we're honest in our reviews. Because we actually really, truly do care about these IPs. And when we get something good, we love to shout it to the mountains. And when we get something bad, we dissect it and look for ways to improve it. Because at the end of the day, we love this. We love the IPs. We just want really good quality writing. And if we don't get it, we talk about how to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what you're going to get here at the Ryder Brothers. We are never going to, well, as far as I'm concerned, purchasing of subs to inflate our numbers is not authorized, nor will that be a condoned practice here on this network. What people do with their own channels is their business, but here we have honest, real people that want to follow us, and we hope that you guys are one of them, and we're glad for those of you that are here. But I am also very thankful for the three gentlemen on this panel. I know what you guys are thinking. It's the day before Valentine's Day. PD's probably just going to be his usual sentimental asshole self. You better believe I am. And so, guys, I mean, this is actually a big point, because after this week, we will officially be in year 3 of TWB. What's going to roll out? Well, I was hoping some new opening graphics would be out and ready by now, but that's pushed back until I can get upgraded equipment. So we get the same stuff for a good little while longer, but we have new loading screens now, and I'm probably going to come up with more scenic views. I'm at least showing up dressed for success. That's what I want to do for the Tuesday show. Of course, Friday is still casual fun. And yeah, that's basically where we're at. We, of course, look forward to more of you, the audience. We are welcome to hearing out your input at the writerbrothers@gmail.com. And those who come along early and try to help shape the way, you know, this is the time, because it's getting to that point where we're going to cross over into monetization territory. And look, I'm enthusiastic to entertain anybody who wants to help us out, but you know, take advantage of the slow time. That's all I'm saying. But with that, part of what we do on this show is our pop culture news, and this is a segment that's always going to stay with us forever. Corione, what's going on in the pop culture world today that we need to freak out about?
Well, there's been a couple of little pieces here. I'm going to start with probably the most disappointing of the news. So Warner Brothers has a full-fledged movie set up called Coyote versus Acme. Now, the basic premise of this is Wile E. Coyote has figured out who actually runs Acme and why all his schemes have failed over the years. And it turns out it's because Acme's been, for lack of a better term, screwing him. And now he's going to get his revenge. This is a great idea for an animated movie. It sounds like it would be a lot of fun, and a really good use of the character. But Warner Brothers doesn't want to produce it. They've been looking at other studios that might want to pick it up to and including places like Netflix, Amazon, what have you. And they recently hosted a night where they previewed the movie for people. And what wound up happening from all of that was, immediately after they put forward the movie, they said, okay, it's this much to buy it, first come, first served. Do you want it or not? Didn't give anybody any time, didn't give anybody any, kind of options to split costs or what have you. And so the response was great for the movie, but not for the business practice. So it looks like it may not get picked up, and it may wind up be forever on a shelf somewhere on a Hollywood server.
Yeah.
And it's completed.
Nemesis of Eden
it's ready to go.
Yeah, Nemesis of Eden says, "Hail, you beautiful beings. I hope you are all doing well tonight. All the better now that you're here with us hanging out, bro. We missed you on Friday. We hope to see you this Friday. But happy to see you now."
Yeah, so that's our first piece of news. It's kind of sad because this sounded like a hilarious project that I think we all could have used the fun for. The next piece I want to bring up is Dune 2 news. Denis Villeneuve has put forward saying that while the first movie in the series was primarily from Paul's perspective, this one is going to be more focused on Chani's perspective. So we're going to kind of see things through her eyes as it goes forward.
Do you have a source for this one? Because I had heard something.
This was in.
Huh?
Yeah, so this was in Variety.
Okay.
But it was in the French variety, so I had to pull out a whole bunch of
variety.
Well, yeah,
so
I mean, if we could just get it up there, because there was one that did come up that I did share on the Twatters or the X Twatter, whatever. Oh, right. I forgot. we're no longer suspended on X Twitter, by the way. So if you guys want to follow us there, if you like the Writer Brothers, but you don't like my BS, or just Corione's BS, or just Skogley's BS, and you certainly want none of John's BS, then the TWBX Twitter is the account to be, because that's mostly where, I mean, I occasionally chime in, but I stay a pop culture focus primarily on the Twitter, because that's what it's mostly there for, but that is where we'll mostly promote shows, ideas, and that's where you connect with us there, if you don't want to, waste time on any of our personal Twitters.
Yeah, so here we go. So I've actually got it on Esquire now.
Awesome.
Here we go.
Good. So
Okay.
to what I was saying, speaking of X Twitter, because that's the whole reason it came up, I just sat there and said, why did I even bring it up? Right. The whole reason I brought it up was because it was initially reported that this was, I had heard a story like this, but a certain blob source was trying to ship a narrative that, oh, they were changing into the main character. So what exactly is this saying then?
So
in contrast
the
to
translated the actual interview, which I had to sit down and listen to in French and then translate, basically says that, like, if you were reading a book that had the point of view character change throughout the book, this is going to have the point of view character be Chani. So in some ways, yes, she is the main character for this section, but she's the main character for this section, still telling the original story.
Game of
We're
Thrones
just getting
is
it
written
from.
like that.
Sorry?
Game of Thrones is written like that.
Exactly. Right? So now some people are running with the narrative that means Chani is going to be the main character. I would argue that she isn't. I would argue that she is the point of view character. Okay. And that they're going to keep the story more or less the same, which, seems solid to me, which, I mean, it's going to be an interesting way to put a take on this. But, we're still getting Paul's story, right? And the Dune lore is still all about the story of how Paul more or less sets up an empire, leaves it to his kids, and then, of course, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
So we're still getting that story. We're just getting it with slightly different views on how.
So then it's basically like The Great Gatsby instead, where the story is just being told from a different character's perspective, or it's gonna focus more from what they do as they watch Paul ascend, and so that's kind of who we're supposed to be riding shotgun with. Okay. Yeah, that does not sound... That just sounds like normal storytelling to me, and that's kind of what happened in the original Dune movie, or the first Dune movie adaptation. I mean, that's basically what happens when Sean Young's on screen. She kind of takes over, riding the audience along while Paul, does what he's supposed to do. And then, and so I don't. It doesn't seem like it's that. It doesn't even seem like it's a departure of anything. If anything, it's staying close to the original lore. But
well,
I would even go so far as to say it's staying exactly in line with where the story was going. The first part was the whole general exposition perspective, like where are we as a society? Where have we gone so far? And then, like, we just met Paul. We haven't seen him do anything crazy past, like, 20 minutes of fighting, and he was really for the prophecy. But, like, we also just learned about the prophecy, And I think that's the part that, like, Parker, that makes the most sense. Like, of course it's close, but it's not actually where they're at.
Yeah. All right, John.
It's not a departure at all.
There you go. Yeah, no, I don't think so, and I think it's desperation because I really personally am going to enjoy the content drought because there is a plethora of other content backlog we can still go through on this channel to fluff and pad our time with, but. A drought of new content because of the writers and actors strike also means that channels that build themselves on narrative and being in the constant state of things, it's gonna be a little dry for you guys too. So it's funny that these guys are all cheering on the strike, and it's like you're putting yourselves out of work. That's why I'm glad that our show doesn't depend on constant, run of the day news. Because yeah, it's. I think after Dune 2, that's probably when it's gonna be a little bit gonna be a little dry for shows and movies, at least in America.
Well, that just means we get to explore all kinds of other stuff and some of the really great content that has come before.
Yeah.
Now, the last little piece of news here I've got, it concerns the I'm calling it the battle for Disney's soul. So, for those who are unaware, Disney is in a proxy war between Nelson Peltz and Bob Iger. Now, both of these guys are vying for control over the Disney board. I'm going to give you guys kind of the crib notes of this. I'm not going to go too much into detail because there's a lot of different pieces to this, and we could get lost in the weeds for days. But the long and short of it is, it looks like Peltz might get his wish of getting 2 of the seats in the next election, because as a rule, power doesn't panic. If you're in charge and you know you've got everything on lock, you don't sweat it. You don't send out cringy videos. Well, Bob Iger just sent out a cringy video begging people for votes to make sure that his people stay in office. So if he's sending that out, it means there's a very real chill going down his spine right now, that the board could elect Peltz's people and give Peltz a seat at the table. And if he gets a seat at the table, it'll just be a short amount of time before he's running things. Now, I am going to say this, when it comes to, well, who should I, root for here, Mike? That's an iffy one. Because Iger is literally the devil we know, and Peltz is the devil we don't. Okay? Anyone who's like, yeah, Peltz is great and whatnot, we have never actually seen him run a beast as massive as Disney. Now, if you're making the argument,
throw the dice.
Right, and I'm not, I can't argue that, right?
Scogli sitting, I'm an agent of chaos.
Look, and I can't argue that maybe a shakeup is needed. I'm not, and I can't, right? But all I can say is, if I'm going to use a historical guideline here, right? The United States and Britain worked with Stalin because they knew exactly what they were getting with Stalin, instead of backing one of the other random Russians that they could have, right? Because while they knew he was evil, he was a known commodity evil. And, that started a whole other argument on whether, they should have done that or not years later.
Yeah, I mean, in that instance, I think it was MacArthur that was telling us that they'd say, no, we don't stop at Berlin, we keep going to Moscow. And they were like, no, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was MacArthur.
Yeah.
There were a couple of people actually pushing for Operation Overlord. Patton was one of them.
Oh yeah,
saying,
Patton was also, yeah.
Patton was saying, no, we pick up all the German POWs, put them back in uniform, and let's ride. Right? So, how this is going to play out, honestly, I don't know. I would say that Iger is probably one of the greatest survivors we've ever seen come out of Hollywood.
Same with KK, let's be real.
Yeah, look, like they are the cockroaches that you can nuke again and again and will make it out of it somehow. And this is the situation. Like, I've never seen Iger swept before, but now I am.
I would go so far as to say that, like, Bob Iger is the result of McKinsey management getting into Hollywood. Like, he's just another CEO, and he's gonna go from one studio to the next, just like the guy at EA went from one part to the next. And I think that's the issue with a lot of this, is they keep recycling each other like they've learned, but then they all repeat the same mistakes. Like Iger bought up all of these studios, and then all of the studios did the exact same thing. Like rather than being even like Hydra, you know, be the bad guy at least, where you're actually diversifying your portfolio and, you know, operating multiple fingers at the same time, rather than just what we got where they all word vomited the same salad. And none of it made any sense, and none of it was cohesive. Like nobody relied on narrative storytelling or like actual explanation of events. Instead, it was just Mary Sue and jump to conclusions, and everybody you don't like is the bad guy today. Like,
look,
that's what Bob Iger has the power of, and fails to actually do any power with. He's just like, no, do your thing. Rather than like being an authority figure. Like if you're going to be the chief executive, how about execute some good ideas? That's really all we're asking for. I don't care who does it, because you're all obviously dirty enough to get there.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, to be perfectly honest, Disney, your job wasn't hard. You take the hero's journey, you find some character from mythology to run them through it, and you make your bank, and everyone is happy.
Even easier, hire competent writers, hire competent managers that are actually good at managing small teams, and then execute and let them go. Like, you decentralize leadership. Stop trying to run the whole thing from the top. Instead, like, one team focuses on one project, one team focuses on another, and
find
then
somebody who
one
loves the
team
shit.
focuses on legal, and another team focuses on, you know, rating QA, meaning like preparing for rating boards by just, you know, establishing your own, because you guys are friends with everybody. Just grab their freaking scorecard and then make your own team and have them do that for your movies, and then boom, your executives don't have to execute every single objective. Instead, you can actually have teams effecting like an actual logistical plan. Instead, you have so much micromanagement. It's obvious. That's why all this committee BS has led to the same word salad every day. Like, all you have to do is do the job.
All right, well, speaking of doing the job, it's time to do our job. We will get to Apple's #1 instant classic hit, Masters of the Air. But first, we need to talk about why Monarch is the worst show ever made.
Okay, I can do that.
Of course you can. Corey, it's just like, I've been waiting for this moment. You must have seen my notes in the Discord on the show. For
this is my shot, man. This is my shot.
This is
that last shot though was pretty exciting though, wasn't it?
Oh, that last episode 8. It was like, I don't know what happened. Like episode 6 ended, right? And it was like, okay, this show's finally going in a direction. And then episode 7 was like, hold up. Hold on. We're going to get to the rest of the story and the exciting story, but hold on. We got to do a side quest, and we got to do a bunch of backstory that we could have hinted at and should have hinted at earlier in the narrative, but we got to pause, okay?
We got to
pause.
We got to do a bunch of side story that was completely unnecessary.
Nothing to do with any. I could have sunned the most important plot points in episode 7 happened in 15 minutes. That's all you need from episode 7 of Monarch. That was without a doubt the biggest pile of garbage like this entire season has actually managed to somehow. I don't know how this happened. I'm impressed, really, because it seemed to have a decent, we got good ideas. We really do. I like this concept of building a bigger monsterverse and expanding the monsterverse and actually putting a human element to care about the monsterverse. It's why Zilla -1 was so strong and effective as a movie. It works, okay, but we can't be sloppy with our narrative. And that's the problem. The narrative with the episode 7, all of a sudden, now this whole season's just sloppy, and not in a fun seconds kind of way. So
the problem I have, like, going through the entire series is there's the 3 kids that we're following, and one of them is always hanging them up. One of them is always like,
hey, we need the plot to slow down. So it's time for me to have an existential crisis.
And then the other one's like,
Don't get me
It's
wrong.
like,
I liked a lot. I still love a lot of what this show is doing. There's a lot of cool concepts. Okay, Wyatt Russell and Kurt Russell playing the same character is still
That's
working.
awesome.
I
They're
love
great.
it. The two timelines and the way that they were kind of telling them sort of congruently and back and forth, also really cool. Digging it. What did I spend an hour watching with episode 7? Like, why did I feel like I was watching? I was like watching a. It was like the show had depression that day. It's like the season. It's like it woke up and it was just like, dude, we're not. I need to take some time to think about this thing that happened with this other character. I know we're in the middle of crisis, but we gotta. I gotta find myself in episode 7. That's what I felt the show had to go do, and we had to watch the parts that we didn't need to see.
It's a self-insert from the writers.
It's like the show went to cry in the bathroom, and we had to watch it. That's what I felt episode 7 was.
Oh man, you guys are in for a real treat.
I hope so.
I freaking better be at this point, man.
No, because episode 7, this is the worst part about, finishing ahead of everybody else. Because like,
come on, guys, it gets better, I
what y'all are
swear.
complaining about. Because when I was watching it, like I was complaining too, but when you watch the next 2 episodes, the finale, like it turns out episode 7 is actually an introduction to something else.
Of course it is.
And it has nothing to, like, the
It
main
has nothing to
characters,
do-
the
yeah.
only thing they are, and I worded this in the Discord while you were complaining about her, and I think it's the best way to describe it, is like, the 3 main characters, the 3 kids, are exactly what would happen if you grab any 3 26-year-olds off of the face of the earth. They all have some life story behind them, and none of them are ready for this chaos. And that's kind of like what they're trying to show with this whole story, is that each of them have their own backstory that does kind of matter, but like they're
Not
also
really.
not. Like they're not just random kids. They're 3 kids that are actually deeply connected to this story, but everybody kept it a secret from them, even their dad. And their moms had no clue. Like,
No, dude, I'm sorry. I'm getting to the point where out of the 3 kids, not one of them is likable. Because the more I learn about their backstory, the more I'm like, nah, dude, I don't want to have anything to do with these people.
okay, and that's the best part about it, because name one 26-year-old you do.
God, man, I've got like a group of 13 26-year-olds that I've been working
Right.
with for years that I freaking love. Because
Right,
all of them
13.
have reasonable heads on their shoulders.
You have a number for it, man. Like,
Well, yeah,
vast
I have a number
majority of
for-
kids that- like that's kind of what I mean though, is like the
Specific-
show is supposed to be 3
Good reason.
kids, like 3 estranged individuals that nobody's ever met before, and you're actually seeing the grossness of their reality. But what we're also seeing is that they're all being tested, and they
I want
suck
to point
at it.
out real quick that John is actually turning 28 this year.
Okay, fair enough. But like, hear me out. Hear me
25?
out on
30, bro.
You're not 30 this year. No, you're 30 next year.
No, 94, dude.
You're 30 next year, because I'm 33 this year. You don't turn... No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were born in 94.
So it's been 30
Right,
years.
right. That's
this
right.
year.
Wait, that doesn't make sense. So I've been doing our math on our birthdays wrong all this time. Awesome.
I'm 3 years younger than you.
Yeah, I thought you were 4.
Okay.
Like,
but anyway.
what?
You all are children.
Since
Anyway.
when? It's
No, but like,
it's
hear me out.
Yes, I want to point out, John is
So-
still in his 20s. He is not left yet, so he is still very much friends with plenty of 26-year-olds.
Okay, but
No.
like, hear me out though.
No,
Guys,
I swear.
Hear me out
No.
on this. So we have the brother, who is the most whipped individual I think I've ever experienced. Like,
Mhm.
this guy takes beta male and makes it like, no, this is a character, not a character trait. This is the character. We have the sister.
His name is
Who-
Beta Male. I might have to do that now in a writing project. Something. That's the name of the character,
Yeah.
Beta Male.
Yeah, we have the sister who is
Spell it
who is
weird.
incredibly upset at her father for doing exactly what she does to her girlfriends.
Yeah, I will say this. That,
Okay,
Projecting.
Right, like father, like
Protecting.
daughter.
Hurt
Anyway.
People hurt people.
right.
like-
So like,
Like she's embodying the issue of being like looking at yourself and then looking back on your history and realizing that you're just as bad as your parents. Like, you were always judging them, and it turns out that you're all equals. Like, and I think that's what I'm trying to say is, like, this show is not about good kids or heroes. This
John
is about
makes
how
good
heroes
points
are
to all of
made.
our complaints, but I genuinely like hear your points. I'm like, yeah, those are good points, but man, it was
Well-
still frustrating to watch. Like, oh,
Well, hold
Right,
on,
but-
and then we've got May, and I want to ask a legitimate question here. Is there anyone she isn't both simultaneously spying for and to?
Yeah, she's a freaking narc.
She
Like,
is a
she's-
freaking Discord server for these
Exactly.
people.
right, but that's what I'm saying.
She is
is
just
that,
an
like,
open Discord.
That's the thing is, like, people think that like that's what I love about the show is these aren't actual spies. These aren't actually clever, super Goonies level kids. These are legitimate bum 27-year-olds, like bum teenagers in adult bodies that have not actually been tested a day in their lives.
they
And
don't.
this
I
know
hate
each
to
story
be this
is these
guy.
kids being tested, and
They-
that's why I love like all the other characters and like the world it's in, because like, yeah, you don't actually have to really love these kids because all the other characters are also extremely important, and also it's Godzilla's universe and the movies make more sense. Like, to
But
me,
I mean, ultimately, are they important? Because, like, there isn't a character here that if they got squished under the foot of Godzilla, I would shed a tear for.
Shaw,
In fact, I'd probably be cheering on the lizard.
dude, I'm still like down, like I'm super down for Team Shaw. Like, I'm super down for like some of the characters in the later episodes. Like, to me,
Yeah.
it's more about the journey, and these kids are just three people going on the journey for us, and we get to follow along. Like,
yeah.
we don't actually have to
Dude,
be
and-
them.
and-
We are them as the audience. Like, I honestly think they are more audience members like us, and that's what makes them fun to me.
Okay, I mean, to me, these, like, okay, this show is making me feel old because I'm like, oh my god, these Gen Zers, right? And like, I just want to be like, you kids get off of Godzilla's lawn. Like, just go away.
And
Right?
you've been saying that though. Like, everybody's been saying that. Like, nobody doesn't say that about the younger generation. And that's the best part about this is like there's also your generation in the show. There's also your age, like throughout. That's where the real diversity is. Is
He
they have
just called
every
you
age
old.
group talking to each other.
I know he did.
No,
You
I-
are
And I
No,
good.
will
like-
make this young whippersnapper pay for it at some point in the future.
Corion's between.
I'm here for it.
Corion's the guy that is actually already working at Monarch and is actually trying to help these kids because he recognizes that they're kids being drug into this.
Oh,
and
I
they
assumed you
just
meant
talk
Kurt
to
Russell.
appropriately.
Sorry.
No.
Oh
Sorry,
no, like
I-
I'm 100% the Kurt Russell character. Like I'm just gonna say that right now.
Oh, me too, without a doubt. But yeah.
He's 96.
But I want to see.
Yeah,
But I want.
so
no.
he's still a little young to be me, but
Yeah.
I get it.
No,
I get it.
episode 8. It was like episode 8 came on, and it was like, oh, welcome back, show. Welcome back to your own season. Did you have a good cry that last episode? Did we figure ourselves out? Yes, we did, because episode 8 felt like the show that I had been watching and was finally continuing, and I liked where it was going, and I'm curious to see, okay, world in between worlds, the bigger on the inside, all that quantum pocket stuff that
The
why
Hollow
not?
Earth. Oh yeah, I was like,
It's-
oh, I forgot about
It's
the Hollow
20.
Earth.
It's gonna be weird
But
watching
you- well, all that-
2014 Zilla. Next
That's
time.
what I mean by it ties in all the Godzillas and the
I
Kong.
forgot about the Hollow
like,
Earth.
and
I was
Skull
like, oh,
Island.
this is gonna be
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, that's true.
Because
There
we
could be a
forget
portal.
that he's John.
There could
The other
be a
guy was
portal.
John Candy.
Yeah, there could be a portal to Zilla -1 universe. So, yeah.
No, look, I mean, look, to me right now, the way this series is going is like, unless episode 10 has some sort of like has something to really, really surprise me, like, I don't know, this suddenly turns into an all Godzilla eyes wide shut party on camera. Just something to like make me go, wait, what? Right? Like, I don't know what we're getting into at this point. I did like the littlest cameo of like, oh, those are the guys that made Mechagodzilla. That's kind of cool. But I'm like,
A lot of the times when somebody shows up and it's like, dun dun, I'm like, I have no idea who it is.
well, I'm sitting there going like, that was vaguely cool, but you are the guys I'd rather be seeing this series about, right? Like, I was sitting there, I'm like, oh, it's Naomi Nagata. Okay, first, anybody else catch that from The Expanse, the engineer, Naomi Nagata, is running the shadowy agency creating Mechagodzilla? Like, I'm just saying, right?
That's who she's, yeah.
Right? Like, I'm just sitting there going like, okay, that's kind of a cute little moment where I'm like, I kind of dig that. But getting little moments in a series like this at this level of maturity in the plot, I should have been getting that in day 1, day 2.
Exactly. It should have been like day 3. We should have had like this plot should have been like hinted to in some way, or at least promised. And then it's just, but it's like episode 7. Just like I said, it's like the show goes, hold on. I need to go have a cry in the corner this episode. Bear with me. Watch. Look at me ugly cry. No, show. I don't want to watch you ugly cry. I want to watch you episode 8. I want to watch you 1 through 6. I want to watch the show, you know, that had a decent narrative going, that still has a pretty interesting premise going. So, yeah. If you are one of those people that prefers to watch all the episodes all at once, next week, please join us for the discussion, as we will be discussing the season finale, possibly the series finale. I don't know. Of Monarch. Do we have any further last comments though on Monarch before we move on to DS9?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Yep. We do, of course. John has some pretty exciting video game news to bring us later, but for now, let us do some Star Trekking. And there's really no rush to do this Star Trekking, so let's see, what episodes did I have us watch? I literally typed them out today.
There was Ascension.
That's how busy I've been in real life. That's right, Ascension. Ooh, that's a good one. So
I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Okay.
Let me pull up.
All right.
Let me pull up the IMDb because it does have a good description. So
How he finally comes to terms with it, and you see that he actually he likes it. He's trying to convince himself that he's happy, that he doesn't have the responsibility anymore. And I thought it was really cool.
All right.
The relationship building.
All right, finally, a competent showrunner in progress finally has the plot line. All right, so here's our discussion point for DS9 episode Ascension. The crew is surprised when the wormhole opens up and an ancient Bajoran light ship comes through. Inside is a poet, Arcorum Lon, who disappeared from Bajor over 2 centuries ago. Lon was rescued by the prophets and now sent back as emissary, so he claims. Sisko doesn't feel like contradicting him, since the prophecies seem to suit the story of Lon better. He is also relieved to be finally able to give up the difficult position. Sisko gets second thoughts when Lon wants to reintroduce the Dajaras, the abolished Bajoran caste system. Meanwhile, Keiko returns from Bajor and tells O'Brien she is pregnant.
She does something really sweet for them, though, at the end. It was really nice.
The chief feels compelled to be at home and free at his free time to stop spending it with Bashir. It's very obvious he misses the Holosuite adventures with the Doctor, though. Shout out to Arnu and Teal for an exactly perfect summary of that episode. Yes, this is one of the best episodes of the entire series. It is definitely one you can't necessarily skip on rewatches, just because, you know, it brings fresh perspective each time. Drake and Blaze Gaming says, poll answer got me good. Right, I forgot. The poll segments, we have to end on, we gotta end these on this actual segment. So, yeah, we have, out of 3 votes, 2 people want to know why we are watching Monarch. Well, go back and watch the episode where John sold us on the idea. And that'll complete it. So, yeah, this is a great episode because we really get to see a lot of strong character. Okay, so in contrast to Monarch's character development, or rather lack thereof, here DS9 swoops in with Sisko's strongest character development moment in the entire series, and just a very pivotal moment even in Star Trek, because yes, he gets relieved of responsibility, and like any millennial would happily welcome the opportunity. But realizes that, well, maybe this isn't such a good idea, and against what we would expect a typical, atheist Starfleet officer to do, he decides to subject his fate to the will of the wormhole alien prophets. And well, of course, we find out that, oh yeah, this whole point was just a test to see if you still wanted to be there. And yeah, there it was.
Wait, no, that's not what the prophets were saying. It wasn't a test. It was literally like he was constantly sitting there thinking, like, why would you choose me? And like the prophets literally showed him his option. Like one of the other Bajorans who had already tried to become a prophet, who was like a very aware Bajoran, and he's like, that's who I think is the picture perfect ideal, emissary. And like they're like, okay, well, let's show you. And they showed him, and it was disgusting. Like he hated it. He was like, wow, this guy immediately went back to the archaic structures of the past, completely ignored all of the progress and destruction of the present, and then is just in charge. Everybody's worshiping him. And the reason why they chose Cisco was not because Cisco is this god or this man of mans. Instead, he is literally a morally upright, honorable commander within Starfleet. He is the minimum standard of a Starfleet officer at the start of the show. And that is more than most in the rest of the galaxy. And that's what the show's really all about, is like when you uphold the standard, you're right all the time. Because if your standards are morally just, nothing can be against you. And that's where I think what Cisco really got is he's like, no, like they picked, even though he may not see it as like, oh, I am prophetic. Like he actually sees it as like, oh, I'm the reason they picked me is what Kira said. Like, I don't think you understood how much power you, the emissary, had over us as a people. We would have like broke our backs for you.
Yeah. We would have done anything.
And that was when he realized, like, okay,
she's like in tears when she tells him.
Well, I mean, dude, think about it this way, right? I mean, this is practical, like, to what the Bajoran's religion is. This is practically a messiah, right? Like, this is, he's not quite space Jesus, but he's as close as you're gonna get.
It literally is. Like, that's what they describe him as. He came back from the dead. They brought him back to life. And that's what Kira says, or not Kira, but Dax says, like, no, they brought life back into you. Yeah. Like, no, they legitimately, like, see him as Jesus coming the second time. And that's what I'm talking about, is, like, his moral standard, Starfleet's moral minimum for commanding officers is what everybody else considers to be godly.
Yeah, and I think the important piece to take away from this episode more than anything else is, if you're ever in a situation where you ask yourself, why me? The answer is always because it couldn't be anybody else. Right? And that is, I think, the most powerful piece you can take away from this is, anybody else in this situation would screw it up. But by Cisco just being Cisco, he's going to get it right.
He's the Cisco.
He is the Cisco. That's
the part. The difference was like the other emissary was legitimately like, I speak on behalf of the gods, therefore my opinions are of the gods. I'm God. And Cisco's like, that's arrogant AF.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. That's the Cisco, is like, no, I speak for Cisco. You may revere me as the emissary, but like, I only speak for Cisco. And when you need me to speak as the emissary, I will do it out of tradition.
This is
Your
it's a
tradition.
job, right? It's like I'm
No,
not
yeah,
the voice. I am the emissary too.
Yeah,
The
I'm the
not
I'm
the
the
voice
ambassador
of.
that goes back and forth. I'm not
The
the
voice
actual
of.
divine being.
Yeah.
Well, and then I think that was the other really cool thing about this episode. How does he solve the problem? Dude, we're gonna go talk to the prophets.
Yeah.
Like the other guy, he went to go talk to the prophets on accident in his sailboat. And Cisco's like, get in the shuttle. We're going for a ride. We're going for a drive, buddy. Get in the ship.
We'll see
Like,
what the problems
we're
are.
not going to divide the people. Screw that. Get in the ship.
Like you almost feel like if the runabouts had a trunk, he would have thrown the dude in the trunk and just driven over.
Yeah. I also love the ending too. When Kira's like, no, I remember this being something else, and then it turns out, no, he had more poetry, and basically what happens is they took both potential timelines and put them together, and then it created some sort of mind effect.
Oh, I like
where
that.
she had different memories of a different timeline, but was now in a new one, but nothing had actually changed.
I gotta get Captain Infinity's thoughts on this
So
one.
you're referring to this as like a prayer Mandela effect?
Maybe the Mandela effect isn't changing reality. Maybe it's bringing two different timelines together at the same time. And bring us back
I
on
would go
Friday
so
and
far as-
Thursday.
I would
Yeah.
go so far as to say this was literally the closing of the loop. Like a Back to the Future series event in terms of like he actually goes back, or when Stewie is the best example. In one of the first episodes where Stewie's doing time travel, they like mess it up to the point that there's like 1 million Stewies in a row. And then he just goes back 1 second later, kills the other guy, rides his ship back immediately. And it's like, that's closing the loop. That's literally what they just did. They literally popped him back out of the portal right back at the start. And while Kira rode the loop because she was outside of the space, we watched the whole close. And that story was literally all about the Cisco. They pulled him out for so long that Kira developed into this whole person that affected the Cisco so much. And that's why I say, like, he didn't question his transition until Kira told him what they would have done for him, and he realized it was equal to being a commander in Starfleet. He was so good at it because he treated it just like any other command post. Like you said, Scopely, like it was just another post, just another billet title on the job that he already held in such reverence. And that's what I mean by like, that was something that I think, like what you guys have said so many episodes on our show in the past, is like the idea of Starfleet is that it's about reaching paradise and bringing paradise to others without being a colonist, without being an empire, without being aggressive, and instead bringing it peaceably with rules that actually suck to follow, and eating that because better you follow them than you destroy a world. And that's what Starfleet represents. And that's why I say that like their version of moral uprightness is what we consider to be idyllic. But to them, any technology sufficiently advanced, any ideal sufficiently advanced and moralized and idolized and actually lived becomes second nature. It becomes policy. It becomes procedure. And that's what, like, I think Starfleet has always represented, is that they're not just technologically upright. They're not just super nice to each other. They're actually very aware of who they are in the universe, despite being a speck in the universe.
Yeah. No, you definitely, you were definitely paying attention to that episode, so I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad it was worth your time. And yeah, I honestly, I don't think there's any more that can be said. You definitely
It's a great analysis.
Did
Yeah.
a great job. Drake and Blazing Gaming writes in, if someone says DS9 isn't real Star Trek, they need some glasses. Cisco, OG Picard, and OG Kirk for their win. Hell, I'd say even the Kelvin timeline Kirk, too. Yeah, I have to agree. Chris Pine did a great job in that version of Kirk, and I thought that Quinto did a fantastic Spock. Urban was the best as McCoy,
Yeah,
hands down.
He's always the
God.
best at whatever he does.
I liked Saldaina's take on Uhura, and I thought Chekhov was fine, and of course Simon Pegg as Scotty was perfect. Yeah. So
But that one was just
wasted
harsh
potential.
not really wasted potential so much as just unrealized potential. Like, they kept trying to take it in the Back to the Future, like, let's bring back the nostalgia. It's like, guys, you won on the first try. Just write whatever you want and bring back those spaceships.
Yeah.
Like, you could literally write any space adventure you want at this point. You nailed it on the first try. But instead, they were like, Khan!
But not just Khan, but it was like Star Trek Into Darkness is like taking your brain and actually like intentionally making it stupid, because it kind of starts with some action and then it just goes non-stop. And Corione actually had me on it the other day. Both Corione and Jay had it on me on Casual Free for All Friday. But Into Darkness, just it's a waste of a movie, because we get to Beyond, and Beyond is a fantastic Star Trek film in so many ways. Like, we've got classic TOS cheese, we've got, you know, classic, just it finally gets. I felt that the Kelvinverse had the proper modern Star Trek feel for the TOS era, and it's too bad that we didn't get any more. We might get one final movie in that era, but then after that we got Discovery.
You know, honestly, I don't even think I've seen Star Trek Beyond, because Into Darkness was so bad.
Oh, dude, we gotta do a movie night for the channel. We might have to do like a live watch and ooh, next month is my birthday. So, or not next month, sorry. Next month's somebody else's birthday. My birthday's in April. So maybe we do Beyond for that. I don't know.
Well, that's what I mean, though, is like, there's
hold
nothing
on, real quick.
really...
Blaze in the chat says, "Damn it, man, I'm a doctor, not a nuclear physicist."
Damn it, man, I'm a doctor, not a pool boy. It's my favorite McCoy.
Yep.
Oh, man.
No, but my biggest thing with, like, when it comes to these nostalgia bait series, that's what doesn't make any sense. Like what was Lord of the Rings after the first introduction with the Fellowship of the Ring? Like, it wasn't a complete, like, all right, let's write the second book. No, it was a continuation of the first movie with the second book filling it in again. And then the same with the Return of the King. Like, certain things that were entire plot lines that actually followed all three books were cut entirely, or subplots in the second and third books were cut entirely, just like they were in the first book, because it was a continuation of what was already written. And that's what, like, Beyond nailed. But at the same time, like, Beyond came way too early, because you go from, like, I'm rah Starfleet finally to I'm ready to get out within like 6 months is what it feels like. Like, as far as like Christopher Pike,
there's clearly more. There's clearly more. There's clearly more time implied that passes between Into Darkness and Beyond. There's
But
supposed to be at least like 5 years, or no? Yeah, they say 3 years
implication
or
can
5
only
years.
last you so long. You know, like, that's the gross part about implication, is like you're hoping it looks like that.
Well,
And that's what I'm saying.
Hold on. But I disagree. So I think you need to rewatch the movie again too, because that's just it. Beyond actually makes it work because of that opening scene where Kirk is doing his captain's log. You actually get that feel that a lot of time has passed.
No,
it was kind
what
of
I'm
similar
saying,
when Riker takes command of the Titan in Picard season 3.
More along the lines for me is what happens with it's the way you jump in the series. Like, I wasn't done with Christopher Pike, or Chris Pine's Kirk.
Yeah.
I wanted a 7 series. I wanted something more, and so by the, like, it
Me
literally
too.
went from it did the Last Jedi, it did the Star Wars thing where it just went 1, 2, 3, and like 1, 2 were a week apart, and then 3 is 5 years later. And it's like, come on, guys. You think you can just skip, but you're making us follow along, and we're being drug on a tightrope. Like, that's exhausting. And that was the part that like drew me out of it, was like, how can we already be at the end of the saga when we just got into the beginning of the good episode?
No, I understand and I feel that. It's just, but by the time, unfortunately, the actors were already old. There was literally.
Well, no, but that's what I'm talking about. Is like, that's where you miss the mark when you keep doing these like really long, drawn out series while you also own the IP and you know that Star Trek is an actual TV show. Like what they're doing with Anson Mount, they're doing the same kind of thing where they're just like bulldozing to plot points rather than just writing the line. Like, this is one of those New Girl. This is one of those, you can do a sitcom level series.
Right.
Because there's so many scientific theories, especially today. Like,
Yeah.
Roddenberry was barely working with quantum physics. And in modern society, we have 1,000 different versions of Matrix theory that could easily be envisioned on Star Trek.
So yeah, and then what you just said is why we watched DS9. Dragon Blaze says, I didn't like how at the start of Star Trek Beyond, Kirk was tired of the 5-year journey. Like, what? He wanted out? Okay, so I think we really do need to sit down and watch Beyond again, and I think I'm going to have to do a full-on review like I did with Generations to explain why Beyond is one of the best Star Trek movies ever made. Yes, up there with the classic 1 through 6. In my
Nobody's
opinion.
disagreeing with that. It's just the transition. If you try to Lord of the Rings watch the 3 series, it's, I don't like Starfleet because it killed my dad. I'm super into Starfleet at the end of this movie.
No. That's
I'm
why
out.
you actually the best way to do the Kelvin movies is to do 2009, then imagine a bunch of stuff happening, and then Beyond. And then that's it. And Into Darkness doesn't have to happen. And trust me, the Kelvin timeline's better that way if you just imagine the 5 years in between. But no, I actually love the entire premise of it because of, yes, the Into Darkness basically is what killed the Kelvin timeline. Because it's a fluff action movie. Now, I get it. People love it. I'm happy to hear your guys' opinions. This is the place to bring them. We are all about promoting everyone's passion and why, but what we ask is your honest opinion. We want your convictions. We want to know why you think something is good, not because somebody else told you something is good. That's all we want. And so when it comes to Into Darkness, I loved Into Darkness, but I can go watch my favorite Into Darkness scenes, on YouTube. And then I spend 15 minutes doing that, and then all of a sudden I want to go play Star Trek online. So that's what I end up doing. I see what you're saying, John, and I totally get where you're coming from, and I agree. I agree with everything you're saying. The only thing I can counterpoint is this is all why Discovery is terrible. This is why Strange New Worlds had to struggle at first, is because it's mismanagement of the IP. They don't know how to manage and market to fans because they're not listening to us, the fans.
Right, and so this is the pitch to the guys in charge now, because I'm not Iger. I'm not the guys in charge. I don't get to actually call any of this out. I think it's really funny because I was talking to one of my coworkers today, and she was talking about watching Band of Brothers, and we'll get to Masters of the Air soon, but she brought up one of the lines where the XO and the CO are talking to each other, and the XO goes, so I guess we got this all figured out. We got a straight line to Berlin. Let's go. And the CO goes, yeah, now if I could just get Ike online. We may have all the answers and we may want to get them out there, and that's actually the beauty of YouTube. We can actually get the writers on the line. That's you brought it up to Corione earlier, why are we doing this? And Corione said because we want to actually affect change, and that's why I'm bringing up all these points, is that's where the writers really missed the mark, is if you're gonna fall, don't pretend like it didn't happen. This isn't high school. You don't get to just pretend like you didn't trip over your school books or your shoelaces. Instead, own it, make another movie, and then do Beyond. That's where these other shows really seem to fail, is they keep pretending like they didn't fail. And that's what makes the fail even harder. And that's what Star Wars did, that's what Star Trek did. And they're all hanging out in the same boys club. So the only way that we can affect change is by talking about what could have been better and what could be better and who can fix it is the guys that are writing this, the guys that are in charge of this. Like, the whole reason we do this YouTube video is actually to talk at them, and hopefully they hear some of this. You know,
Well, I
it's not
think-
exactly constructive criticism, but it's definitely creative.
Well, guys, hear me out on this. I think the number one problem with the Kelvin timeline overall is that nowhere in it are scenes permitted to breathe. Okay? They move at such a frantic pace that we don't get any opportunity to think about what is being said. And if you have to write dialogue to allow for people to pause and consider what you're saying, you have to actually make it good dialogue. So I think mandating wait, hold on, this is moving too fast, we need to slow down, and we need to have something to sit here and enjoy. I think it's important. It's like when you have a really, really good steak, you don't just wolf it down, right? You don't just like try to inhale it as quickly as possible. You savor it. You take the time. And I feel like
Like a new relationship.
2000, but it isn't there.
Sorry, what?
Well, I feel like the Kelvin timeline does, in theory, have that opportunity to have those moments,
It's
to
like-
have the points where we can savor
it's
it.
like a-
They just
yeah.
don't allow us to.
It's like a Carl's Jr. or a McDonald's commercial where you see the picture of the burger, but then you go and you get it, and you're like, that's not what I was promised.
Right.
It's fast
And-
food. Thankfully, that
And
doesn't
the
apply
best
for
part
you.
about that analogy, Parker, the best part is it's for the exact same reason. They spend more money on the ad than they do on the person making the actual product.
Yep.
Nobody's
And
gonna
I
love
want-
their job if they're paid $7.25, the bare minimum, or just enough to
Well,
survive.
hold on.
Like,
If
maybe actually
hold
treat
on,
the
hold
people
on,
that
hold on.
do
Let's
good.
let's have an honest conversation about that. Let me get the proper banner up first, though. Let's see. We are doing.
You know what your boss is trying to tell you when he pays you minimum wage? If I could pay you less, I would.
So now that we're gonna bring politics into the Tuesday show, actually, people would be happy with $7.25 an hour. They would. If they're $7.25 an hour, you know, paid for their 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, paid for their 2 cars, paid for their vacation every 3 months, paid for, you know, stuff that $7.25 used to actually, you know, go places, because it doesn't have anything to do with the numbers that we put onto it. It has to do with the fact that
Exactly.
the valuation of our currency is bullshit. And so
But that's what I'm talking about in terms of, like, it literally matters nothing except for the people that are suffering the most, which is now the majority of people. Like, everywhere in terms of, $1 million means nothing to a billionaire. But you know what $100 means to everybody else? Freaking childcare for a day. Like that's the part that, like, I keep hearing about the inflation. It's like, oh, money doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, but it literally does. Like, most of us can't survive on what we're getting, and the only reason we're not getting more is because the people at the top say we don't deserve it.
right.
And
Yeah.
then now product quality has declined.
Why is it that I'm told to be
across
right?
every industry? And it's almost like the guys at the top have been saying the same freaking thing
Why is
for
it the
too
people
long.
right? Why is it the people that have more than everybody tell us to be grateful for what we have? Anyway, so yeah,
The
no,
meek shall inherit what they're bloody well given and be grateful for it.
No, the Kelvin timeline is a nice little what if, basically, at this point, and so that's sadly where it is. And yes, John, I get what you're saying. It's unfortunate because it wasn't properly planned, and unfortunately, it came out at a time when, you know, I know I'm not going to go do Star Trek on the TV screen. I'm a movie star now, and now it's all the same, so it's whatever. Which we all knew was happening then, and here we are now. But anyway, all right.
It's coming out in the time when people are going, I know what you want. And it's like, what? Why would you be so arrogant? Why don't you just go, I know what I want. I hope you guys like it too.
I have no idea what anybody wants, and I keep asking them, and some people tell me, but then nobody else tells me, and then they get mad when I don't figure out what they want, and I'm like, I asked you. Anyway.
Dude, just get her flowers for Valentine's Day, man. Relax.
Write a card. Goodness. We're the Writer Brothers.
Yeah, anyway. The Klingon Empire has asked the Federation to extradite Worf for murder. Worf commanded the Defiant, which was guarding a Cardassian convoy offering medical aid to the Penath colony. The convoy was attacked by the Klingons, and in the heat of battle, Worf gave the order to fire on a decloaking ship. It was a civilian transport. 441 Klingons died. The Klingon advocate Japak is trying to prove to Admiral Talara in a hearing that Worf's bloodlust took over. Japak has a hidden agenda, and he openly admits it. Klingons see this as the perfect opportunity to gain sympathy and weaken the Federation. Captain Sisko is defending Worf and asks Odo to try to find out why the civilian transport joined the battle. Sisko's defense, in the meantime, is not going well. With every witness, Chapak's reasoning seems more and more plausible. Shout out to Arnold Teal for that awesome, mostly spoiler-free summary. See, IMDb is at least good for one thing. Arnold Teal is able to post their fantastic summaries of DS9 episodes.
So, I just want to start by saying I think Japak might be the best one-off character we ever got in Deep Space Nine.
Oh, he's hands down one of the strongest ever. Like, I hated that character so much, and for good reason, and that's because he's well acted, and he's clearly... What I think really works for this character is you can tell that he is on orders. He doesn't have, like, an agenda, a personal agenda against Worf so much as he does getting his job done. And I think that's why he works.
He is every single corporate lawyer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, he doesn't give a flat anything about the case. His job is to win the
Wants to
case.
win. Exactly.
Business.
Well, he
And
even says, like, if
yeah.
they extradite him, I'll represent him because I love this challenge. I freaking love this game.
Well, dude, he makes it seem like I don't know if you guys have seen the show Suits. It was a USA Network TV show, and I loved it because that's what it was that same kind of character as a lawyer, and it was about the love of the game, and that's kind of, to me, what started to represent like why people actually stay in careers that sound so boring. Is there is a game to be played, there's a fight to be had, which is what the Klingons are all about, and also like for once. The Klingons actually have wit and brevity and logic.
This
mean,
guy's
name
like, oh, this
another
looks interesting. What
episode in
side am
Star
I
Trek.
defending? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you almost feel like that. Like, you know, cases come on his desk and he takes a look and he goes, oh, cool, which side do I get to fight for? Right? Like,
yeah,
this is
this will
just
be
interesting
interesting. Pick it apart, figure it
Oh,
out.
dude,
It's almost like he
I-
says, which one's the losing side? I want that one.
Yeah.
Honestly,
exactly.
I feel like their version of like the prosecution is more along the lines of two attorneys are up. Here's your case.
Yeah.
Rochambeau for who's A. Like,
Yeah.
and what is A? It doesn't matter. One of you guys is the plaintiff, one of you is the defendant, and you're prosecuting. Good luck. And the fight is actually between the attorneys, and like that's what their whole fight is. But like, for once, like I don't think I've ever seen the Klingons actually like in a battle of wits. They're
Yeah.
almost always in a battle of strategy or
Well,
combat
that's the thing
or
with the
strength.
Getting
with
drunk.
the Klingons, right? You don't get to see the scientists who developed the technology. You don't get to see the poets and the lawyers, and we did. We got to see a lot.
Yeah. And that being said, yo, man, if I'm ever in space jail, yo, I want to call that guy as my attorney, man. Like, I want a Klingon lawyer, man.
Yeah.
They say the Klingons are the best warriors in the Alpha Quadrant. Dude, check out their lawyers, man.
Yeah.
The battlefield of the
They also are warriors in the courtroom as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
We aren't just warriors in the battlefield, but we also will fight your legal disputes as well. We will bring honor
like,
and glory and millions of dollars to your house.
Yeah, like, I want Law and Order freaking Chronos edition, you know? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll need a metal version of the Law and Order theme. Skogly, you could get on that, please.
We got like an
You know?
8-string guitar should be
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah, right. It's like, in the Klingon justice system, the
Alternate
people
timeline.
are represented by two, by two groups of noble warriors, right? The police who beat the criminals, and the prosecution who ensures they suffer for the crimes. These are their stories.
Yeah, no, that could work. Yeah, in an alternate timeline where the House of Moog is a law firm.
Honestly,
That's
I
it,
feel
man.
like it's way closer to WWE or the court from Idiocracy.
Oh, it'd totally be
Except
like,
with
oh,
these
dude,
Klingon
there it
artists.
is. There's your show, There's your short Trek season, Paramount. 20 episodes of Judge Judy Klingon Empire edition. Like,
Dude, I would watch the hell out of
who
that.
wouldn't? Like,
Exactly.
seriously. And because you could actually have it be like, all right, here's I'm going to sentence you to the labor. I choose trial by combat. Very well. So each fight ends with has the potential to end in a batleth battle. Like, I mean, but we still get the Judge Judy sass. So we gotta have. Oh man, it would have to be a character based off
The
the
old grill cup.
Duras sisters. Yeah.
The plaintiff is sitting in a coliseum, and depending on whether or not the defense wins, right? Like if whoever is like on trial, they're sitting in a coliseum preparing for their fight, and if the lawyer wins, they get off. But if the lawyer loses, trial by combat to finish it out, and it's whatever they want to throw at them. So you can mess with Klingon creatures, you can give them weapons, you can actually like mess it up. Could be anything according to Judge Klingon, you know?
Oh, and like I want like pre-trial interviews where like the lawyers are talking like Macho Man Randy Savage at each other.
Absolutely.
Oh, but I want the actual like defendant to have a legitimate court grievance. Like,
Oh yeah.
I was unlawfully arrested at a protest because they said I couldn't have my gun, and I had my gun. And like that guy's the one sitting in the Coliseum ready to fight if his lawyer doesn't win.
Okay, so like hear me out on this one, because this one's gonna be good. Okay, so like, you know how like Klingon relations are supposed to be like really rough and brutal, right?
No, he doesn't yet.
Okay, well like there's
no,
supposed
wait,
to be,
yeah,
like,
you
a
should
fight.
actually. Sorry, no, by now you
Yeah.
should. Yeah, never mind. You've seen.
So
TNG.
like what I want is like somebody on trial for being like a pervert because like they like snuggling. Like
Snuggle
that
struggle.
would be
Deeply
Yeah.
offensive.
A pervert because he bought a girl flowers.
yeah.
It's
It's like I want a
disgusting.
dude on trial
Dude, it was
because like
so
he's
gross.
running like a Klingon cuddle dungeon, right? And like
Makes me
that's
sick.
got to be it. Like that's just beyond the pale, right?
And I'm your daddy, but it's actually like parenting advice and care.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like that's one of the trials I want to have happen, man.
Oh my god, that'd be so funny.
But like,
But that's
would
what
be
I mean. You
brilliant.
could literally have anything because A, it's a free fictional culture, and B, it's well described. So you have so much character reference and lore to reach off of that you can make this really funny. You could hire like 5 comedians to write this out. It'd be awesome.
Oh, man.
Get the
Yeah.
Lions to write it.
Patton Oswalt, executive direct.
But I will also say that like this trial in the episode that we're actually watching, it does actually feel like a decent kind of court hearing that you would hear in a military tribunal, right?
Yeah.
Like this has connotations to like events we've actually seen happen in the real world, right?
Yeah.
Where situations very similar have occurred. Right? I mean, the first victim in any war is the truth. We all know this. And this is definitely one of those that makes that clear.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly well done. And like, even though Sisko is defending Worf to the absolute best of his ability, he is so mad at Worf right now.
Yeah.
And it's so good for that.
Yeah, no, this is definitely one of DS9's high points. It's a Star Trek high point overall, and yeah, I mean, this is why I also rave about episodes like Ad Astra Per Aspera from Strange New Worlds. It's one of the 9 episodes of season 2, and it's got
But
that
there
same.
were 10
No, there weren't.
episodes.
So it's got that same exact. You know, it's this is where we get that philosophical side of Star Trek, where the excitement is in the cerebral, it's in the intellectual battle. It's not, you know, we're pulling out batleths and you know, shooting phasers. Worf gets provoked in the episode, but you know, all he does is draw fists like a Klingon should, and you know, would be expected to, and of course the lawyer responds honorably like a Klingon and doesn't press charges because he knows what he did.
Well, I mean, he straight up was in a situation of like, no, I intentionally caused this. Like,
Right.
It's just
I-
demonstrating
It's Harvey Dent permission to treat the witness as hostile.
yeah,
Like
Hostile.
110%.
I'll show you hostile.
Exactly. Like that's exactly what he did. And that, I think, is, you know, like, those are the events that are actually fun in those like lawyer dramas. The show would have been boring if it was like, no, he didn't do it. No, it wasn't that bad. No, it was actually procedural. It made sense. And it ended like that. No, this guy was like, that's why this whole like rant about the actual lawyer show would have been fun, because like what that Klingon did seems like commonplace in Klingon Judy. You know?
Yeah. So a couple of great episodes overall, but I think next week we may change it up, probably take a break from Star Trek, do a movie or something like John wanted to. We are, of course, excited as ever to discuss Apple One's instant classic #1 hit, greatest show of all time ever of 2024, Masters of the Air. But first, John has our video game news segment. What are we complaining about today? Or excuse me, discussing today, John?
Well, mostly just
Gamers of the
complaining about
world, whine! Wait, what?
Well, the biggest thing that we're complaining about is that the Xbox news announcement didn't happen today before the show, so I actually had real news announcements. Right now it's all speculation, because apparently there's rumors that Xbox and Microsoft are trying to reach out and start actually publishing some of their first single like platform exclusives and go third party, offering them to things like the PlayStation 5 and the Switch. And apparently the big rumors are Hi-Fi Rush, which I've never played before,
Never heard
and another one called, I want to say Deminant or Pentiment. I don't remember. Haven't played it either. But apparently they also want to bring Game Pass. So it's like the Netflix of games to everybody, which I think is awesome. Like, one of the biggest things about the console war that I think is actually annoying is that there's actually fighting sides. Like, it's adorable. We should just not actually be fighting. Everybody knows that the real difference between Xbox and PlayStation is the controller. Like, you pick yours because you like your controller. And if you don't pick a controller, you
More
pick
specifically,
PC
where
because-
you want your X button.
Seriously. And, well, no, honestly, it's the ergonomics of the controller. Like, I bought the PS4 and I owned a PS3.
It's
I love
it's kind of
the
like
exclusive
whatever
enhanced
you start with, right? It's like I'm used to this one. An Xbox controller just feels weird, right?
Oh, I feel that 100%. Because I actually don't have a problem switching over to the Switch, because I grew up with the GameCube and the Xbox. Those were my two growing up.
yeah. I was about to say, like, dude, if you don't like switching controllers, Nintendo's got bad news for you, dude.
Oh, dude, I
Different
couldn't play the
generation.
GameCube. I
But-
couldn't play the GameCube. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't. My brain just.
Yeah.
The best part, though, is that was one of the nice things about Microsoft. The Elite controller just plugs into the Switch.
Yeah.
And I just go to town. I don't care. Like, and that's really the cool thing about what Xbox is doing. Like, I'm not a fan of monopolies, and I'm not a fan of this, like, buying up everything like Disney did. But if you're gonna do it right. And that means decentralized leadership, and also not actually trying to steal the entire market share. Because if you don't have competition, you become Walmart, you become Amazon, you become Disney, where everything is the same regurgitated, cheap as can be, fastest processed McDonald's we can get. But if you do it right, You spend your money efficiently. You don't worry about revenue because obviously it doesn't matter. Revenue is nothing unless you use that revenue to fund good investments like future products. And if you do that, that's really what Game Pass implies. Is like they are going to Netflix games. And Netflix is still the one that doesn't have ads.
Yeah.
As far as I know. I've never paid. I've always upgraded when it says upgrade. So far, so I don't know if the cheapest one has ads yet, but like even Amazon sold out, and Amazon's the richest company in the world. Why does it need to get ad investment? Why does it need ad revenue? And I bet you it can justify it on paper, but in reality, you could just go, you know what? Why don't we spread the paper out and add 5 years?
Yeah, on
Between
paper,
these
Lord of the
goals.
Rings lost money.
Like, because once you own everything, guess what? You're responsible for taking care of everything. And that's what you've done. Like, you're responsible for maintaining the ecosystem that is what we've got. Disney, Xbox, you know, like the more you buy, the more you have to take care of. And Disney failed. Xbox has actually been doing relatively okay. At the very least, a lot of free games. But, like, watch yourselves, because you could easily fall just like everybody and every other monopoly throughout history has.
Yeah, definitely. All right, any more video game news?
No, that's all I got for now.
Okay, well, I guess that means we actually get to have a Masters of the Air segment full on tonight. So, yeah, ooh, looking like a nice 30 minutes or so or no, wait, 40 minutes, because I can do math. If you have not checked out Masters of the Air on Apple TV, what are you even waiting for? Oh, all the episodes to drop. Okay, well, we'll let you know. We have had, of course, fans of this channel who prefer to watch all the episodes at once, and while I myself don't like to do that often, I've decided, you know what? We're just going to let you guys know when all the episodes are done, so if you want to join the discussion with us, you can. And if it makes zero difference, still going to do it anyway for anyone else who comes along who, prefers to ingest your mediums that way. So, from now on, like I said, next week is going to be our Monarch discussion. So, if you have not watched Monarch and want to, now's your chance. Go watch Monarch all week. You have 1 week to get all 10 episodes done. This show, however, is not done airing, and we will let you know when it is, because holy crap, do I love this show. It is without a doubt one of the best shows of 2024. Galenda says, hello, my beautiful people. Hello, the Ryder Brothers' beautiful Aunt Galenda. Good to see you. Glad you're here. So yeah, Masters of the Air is Scogly. Why do you think Masters of the Air is the greatest show ever? Oh right,
Well,
sorry, I forgot to end our poll from earlier.
Well, for starters, it's one of the best looking shows I've ever seen.
So it looks like we have 100% yes that Star Trek DS9 is real Star Trek. That's right, the nerd's answer was a trap. It was a double yes question. So that's the rule I have, is we have to have a minimum of 3 answers on polls.
Well, it's the production team that brought you Band of Brothers.
So, yeah.
As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, yeah. This is going to be great. And it is. Yeah, you're getting to know the guys, you know, everybody's believable, everybody's different. They all come from the different places around the, you know, it's engaging, it's harrowing, it's exciting, it's everything looks realistic. Yeah, nothing stood out to me as
inauthentic.
weak. It's just strong all around. Everything presented is just awesome.
I also love how the guys are like the Flyboys are presented like you would expect these, for lack of a better term, teenagers that they sent over to war.
They're
right?
kids.
They're kids, and they behave like kids, and that's how it should be, right? And not only are they kids, but they're kids that don't have any girls around to keep them honest. So it's almost even worse, right?
Yeah,
Dude.
exactly. All right, so there's our poll for our Masters of the Air segment up and ready to go. So, yeah. Go ahead, John.
This one is actually, to me, it's the difference between all of them, as far as Band of Brothers, the Pacific, and the one that seldom gets mentioned, Generation Kill.
Yeah.
And that's the cyclical nature of war. Because, like, that's one of the biggest things that the Air Force faced. Like, if you notice, Bucky has already been through, like, 15 teams.
Yep.
Like, they did the numbers roughly, but, like, statistically, you're unlikely to survive 11 missions, and 25 missions, you're a war hero. And that's something that even, like, Captain America touched on in his debut. Was that, like, he was the one person who volunteered and got the cushy gig, and everybody else, when he goes, you could use a volunteer, they're like, that's how we got here. And that's a thing that, like, Band of Brothers couldn't touch on, because they were the 101 who flew in and were the only ones of their team. And when the new guy showed up, or when one of their guys returned, like, it was one, and it was like once every, like, 7 or 8 episodes, right? Whereas this one, it's like literally between the first 4 episodes, Bucky has gone through several teams, and he's on his 22nd mission. And so he's already beat the average, and he's dying, you know?
Yeah, like, honestly, okay, this last episode just brutalized me here, because I started to realize, like, oh man, every character I was interested in following their story is already dead. Right? Like, it's episode 4, and everybody that I was really interested in seeing progress is already out.
And the craziest part, this is where I think Scogley's opinion was slightly off, is there is a weak thing in this show, and it's the damn planes. Goodness. Those things break for everything, and that's how it was. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, how many people
military grade?
Yeah.
Well,
also just
if I hear military grade, I'm like, it might as well be Chinese crap.
Well, not even. Like, America wouldn't pay for it. Like, they went with whatever Dick Cheney could secure in his contracts, and they were paying the most for the least. And that's what I'm talking about with modern production and modern industry. They're paying the most for the least, right? Because revenue's never been higher, and neither is production. It's been the worst ever.
Well, and that's just it. Godzilla -1 basically called out the inflation of Hollywood right
Power World.
Right.
Called out Pokemon on its inflation. They were phoning it in, and Power World came in and was like, fine, I'll answer the call, and won.
Oh, like, what do the customers actually want?
They apparently want to enslave Pokemon, make guns with enslaved Pokemon.
Look, dude, I just want to play my Michael Vick simulator and be fine with it, okay?
Have you played Goat Simulator?
Yes.
Yes.
Get a mini nuke.
Yeah.
Goat Simulator's hilarious.
I think I broke PD though with that comment.
Yeah.
At the same time, that's the beauty of digital. That's what GTA has always been called out for being and never failed to be. Like,
I know.
That's where all these games.
I was actually
like, I don't get why they used to be punk rock and now they are exactly Taylor Swift. Like, exactly what the comedy, the central pop wants.
Sorry,
and nothing with the people that paid for it wanted.
Should we go back to our video game news? Says video game news part 2.
Well, no, because Masters of the Air is exactly what you get. You get people that are dedicated to fighting the war, stuck in janky turrets that they can't open because it was the cheapest thing the government was willing to pay for. And it was the most rushed thing.
The military grade means the cheapest shit we could get.
And the fastest produced.
Yeah.
So it's even jankier. No QA, no actual manuals until you write them yourselves. I know because I helped write some of them. Like, the amount of equipment and modifications necessary to upgrade a standard issue Humvee that isn't a part of the purchasing document is insane, up to and including the main chassis. Like, come off it, y'all. Like, that's the part that pisses me off, is we're not saving money, we're wasting it. And that was the perfect example of World War II, is look at how many lives were wasted because we wasted money saving money.
Well, on top of that too, I think we do have to acknowledge though that like during wartime, a lot of these planes initially were rush jobs,
Oof.
right? Like, you know, like they needed like this massive armada as quickly as they could possibly make
took
it.
us 4 years to finally acknowledge that we might have a problem in Eastern Europe. And even then, Japan had to actually shoot at us for us to go, maybe we should ramp this up. We always say calmer heads prevailed. My ass, dude. Cheaper heads prevailed.
Fair. I'm just saying though, like it is worth noting that like historical context does matter here, that like a lot of the initial equipment they were sent with was like, okay, let's slap this together as quickly as we can based on the information we've got.
Yeah.
Like on rushed prototypes and hope this works.
Right, but same goes for right now. Look at how much money has been spent on the jets, the F-35 that's never actually flown a combat mission. You know?
See,
that are
I
already
would counter argue.
Cheaper heads prevail.
See, I would
History
actually
repeats
counter
itself.
argue that the F-35 is a product of what I love to refer to as like peacetime production, because like the F-35 is like, we have a budget that we do have to fill, right? And any crazy ass idea we can put together to make something cool will get approved. So let's make like an absolute freaking Cadillac prototype, because no one will be dumb enough to actually give us a production run. But then the government goes like, yeah, let's give you a production run. And they're like, wait, what? You want us to produce this? And let's be honest, any weapon
That
design
was
is
30
cool.
years ago.
I know, but like, let's be honest. Let's be cool. Like, any peacetime production is always going to look cool until it actually gets into the fight.
It's sad.
No, but see, that's what I mean by cheaper heads prevail. People betting on a future warfare, like it's literally everything Iron Man was pointing at. The government was spent so much money trying to replicate something that was a war machine, and that's why Iron Man wasn't selling it. And they spent billions on it. Like, that's what these stories keep telling us, and this is what Masters of the Air is literally proving. Because we spend more on our fictional Air Force budget than we do on our actual service members, than we do on our actual veterans, than we do on literally anything real. And it's because cheaper heads negotiated future deals and future production of better killing machines that never actually work, you know? And that's, again, back to, like, that's where I really love Star Trek, because it's respecting what the military intends while also acknowledging that the captains are few and far between. The Ciscos and the Picards are not normal. They are the cream of the crop, even in a utopian society, because the cheaper head is everywhere. It's the lazy head. It's the one who wants to get more for less. It's the guy that really wants fusion reactions so that he doesn't have to pay his electrician to do their job as efficiently, because he's not paying the electrical bill anymore. Like, it's cheap. And that's the issue with most of our leaders, is they're not the actual guys watching their friends die and cheat. They're General Curtis LeMay, who just said, nah, run the mission.
Well,
and I say that as his offspring.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I mean, like, and what I'm gonna say is this, like, to be fair, everything sounds good in peacetime, right? Like, every design sounds like it's going to be awesome in peacetime. Until you actually start using it, you're never going to be sure, right? Sometimes you get really cool designs like the Thompson, right? Which is just a straightforward, like, solid machine gun, right? And sometimes you get nonsense like the Maxim, right? Which was designed in peacetime, and like, who builds a water-cooled machine gun, right? Like, it didn't work the way they wanted, right?
Look at the guns that are coming out in the public sector. They are 10x better than anything issued to any military ever.
Right.
Because they're actually made for the consumer to consume and, burn 1,500 rounds. The military is like, no, statistically, we only need you to fire 10.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not arguing that. Like, I'm saying that, like, for example, the Flying Fortress sounds like a brilliant idea until you realize that it's slow. The reason why they have to mount so many machine guns on it is because it's slow as hell. And, you're just leaving it up there for a target for really fast movers. And that the solution would have been like, no, let's put money into engines.
And that's what I'm trying to agree with you. Like, when you actually make to users and you make to consumers, you build quality products. But when you make to make, like Raytheon, Lockheed, and all of these other airplane manufacturers, like, you're wasting everybody's time and money, and you're saying you're doing good. Like, you're actually claiming the military budget for fictional money, and then you're going, your workers also don't deserve anything.
Yeah, like, I mean, I personally, like, the engineering standard that I would ever use if I was developing anything for actual wartime is good enough, right? Because it needs to be able to be mass produced, get out there, do its job, and ideally bring its pilots home. And the bigger you make it, the bigger a target you make it. And that's ultimately why the Flying Fortress, like, we don't see ships like that in modern day, right? We see planes that are like, bombers are designed to be as fast and quiet as possible so that they can get in, drop their payload, and get out before anyone realizes something's going on, right?
Right, and that's also, but you could also do, if you had more industry in planes like they used to, you could have actually had the Porsche of planes, where in the civilian sector, it doesn't have anything and it goes 1,000 miles an hour because Porsche actually spent part of their R&D budget on it. But instead you have 1 or 3 people spending their R&D budget on future realistic tech and spending most of their R&D budget, which is research and developing great benefits for the C-suite and their friends. Like, when you monopolize any industry, you get big pharma. You get exactly what we've got from these planes. And that's really what Masters of War isn't necessarily saying with the show, but that's really what the part of the war that is completely missed. In Band of Brothers, everybody in the military is a hero because, like, that's a sacrifice. Going to war, making a new friend, and also dying for them, /with them, /beside them. Like, that's heroic. That's amazing. That's the American dream. But going to war with your best friend and then losing every single person you meet every week because you're the commander and not the main pilot, like, that's rough. And the reasons that you're losing people, that's where Masters of Air really just hits it on the head. Is like, a lot of these guys were dying trying to get back because their plane went down or because they had to parachute out, and then they have to navigate a foreign land that they've never been in because they've only been in America until they were 20 because international travel hadn't been commercialized yet. And at that point, like, all of these kids from like some of them are from Texas and now they're in Germany for the first time ever. And those kids,
if you actually look at the historical perspective, right? Like, the fact that World War II happened is probably why we wound up with such a commercial industry in travel, because a lot of these GIs that had come back from Europe wanted to go visit some of these places in peacetime. And that's kind of where that industry more or less grew up from, is people wanting to go back and forth, or people who were, like people who at post-war were based in Germany, wanted to bring their families over and whatnot. That's actually where a lot of this comes from in a lot of ways, which is kind of, really when you think about it, is interesting that that's where it comes from. And
Well, I think that's the bigger reality of war, is it unfortunately does bring us together.
right? And it's like there's a lot of interesting pieces that they covered. I love that they covered the Belgium resistance in the last couple of episodes, and that these guys were like, no, we're paranoid, we're dangerous, and we're going to keep that going because that's what's kept us alive so far. And they make no bones about it, and they're very, very careful about it, and I love it. I love that they've, they're covering that section of it. I love that they're covering that, some of these guys get a little flak happy, right? Like that's what they referred to as PTSD, right? Like now, they wouldn't have the option of speaking to somebody. That would be mandatory, right? And
Yeah.
it's interesting that that's how it all has come along, right?
And that's, to me though, that's the saddest part about all of it, is that like when I said earlier, like when we first started this last week, like I don't like these movies because personally it seems like a resuscitation of a lot of the like military literature I had to read for my job. Like a lot of PTSD research today is actually discussed. Like they send you to traumatic brain injury awareness classes once a year. They make you take an online course on cyber awareness and on the issues of a lot of substance abuse. Whereas like these kids are the reason that they do it. Like that's the part that I'm trying to drive home, is like it's not that everybody's evil, and it's not that people are inherently trying to kill people. It's that like cheap is never the answer, especially in cheap of how you care for your men and how you care for your team. And that's where like Cisco represents that nothing he does is cheap. Nothing he does is whimsical. Nothing he does is because God tells him to. He does it because he believes it to be right, because he took a lot of time to plan it out and make sure it was the right decision, and actually took some critical analysis and took some criticism from his friends. And that's what a lot of this show shows in the guys that are holding it together versus the guys that are losing it, is that like, and the worst part is a lot of people may see that like Bucky's character, him going out and just finding love, like that's not a guy who's put together. That's a guy who's flak happy and also obviously hurting like emotionally.
Yeah, look.
And it's awesome. I love that this show is doing that. Like it's actually not letting these people be stoic heroes. Instead, they're actual humans living their lives.
Yeah, and you know what? And I would even argue that, look, you can be a hero and not be a perfect human being. Like, absolutely. Okay?
That's what makes you a hero.
That's it, right? Is you're willing to put your own personal stuff going on aside and get the job done. That's, to me, what makes you a hero. And I think they're showing that really well. I think they're showing that, we've got a guy here who's really screwed up and he's self-medicating, the way he knows how, by finding a girl and getting with her, because that's what he need. Good example of what genuine writing of human characters looks like, right? Like, what does he do? He hears that his people have gotten shot up, and his first thought is, okay, I gotta get back, I gotta get in there, I gotta get this done. And that shows that putting aside my trauma because my people need me right now, and that is a quality that I can appreciate.
Well, I think even better was the lady that he ended up sleeping with. She was like, let's not call this for anything that it isn't. Like, she's the one where she's in that next stage. Like, she's aware that she's taking the medication.
Yeah.
And that's the part, like, that's part of the thing that, like, people need to recognize, is that everybody's at different stages in their journey. And this show is highlighting that so well, because we keep seeing a lot of, like, really awesome gung-ho, ready to get home to their girl after they save the world. Heroes that then die on a routine mission or on a regularly, optimally planned mission, led by obviously good leaders. And then at the same time, those leaders are also having to just swallow their everything and hold it together for their team. And like, we saw it in the first episode, and it was pretty impressive. But seeing it in the third episode, in the fourth episode, you're like, oh man, that's what people used to mean by man's man. Like, they're not put together for everyone, but they're definitely put together for their team.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of an interesting piece because they haven't actually said it yet, but I think it's heavily implied so far in the series, is that every one of the little medals you see on one of those officers' chests represents somebody's son who's not coming home, right? And I feel like that weighs heavily on the officers, and you can see it when they're away from everybody else in their private moments that we get to see. You can see them saying that. Like, you can feel them understanding the weight of that. And that's a wonderful piece for people to remember as well, that this, even the guys who are, more or less making the decisions and not actually directly getting involved in the fighting, it's weighing on them too. And that's a good piece to see, right? We've got a kid who's missing an arm, right? And seeing that, being aware of that, and being aware of how everybody is treated, and even, the lowliest tech in the show gets all the respect from the fighting guys, and vice versa, really speaks to how it is. And that I love. So there are some fantastic components to this.
Yeah, and the visuals are still just. That's definitely one of the VFX companies I'd be wanting to figure out who provided because like I said, even though I can still tell in some frames it's CG, there's other frames I'm like, man, you could almost swear that's either a model or even a real plane. But no, it's all VFX. The stuff they did build was the sets, which look very, they feel cramped. They feel like you're actually in the B-17. That still hasn't changed. The feel of this show is still there. And yeah, I agree. This show does not glorify warfare at all. It's like Band of Brothers in the Pacific.
It's ugly.
It just gives us the raw impression. And
well, if you're going to talk about war, like, show the consequences.
Yeah.
I would go so far as to say it is right up there with Band of Brothers, because I didn't think Band of Brothers glorified war. I don't think those shows really glorify war. What this one does better than those, like I said, is that it shows how many. Like, one of the things that those other shows didn't have is that cycle where there's so many kids that went through, showed up on day one, gung-ho, rah-rah, let's go. And then that was the last day anybody saw. Like, that's so rough. And in Band of Brothers, like, you can't do that every episode. But in an airplane movie, that's one of the few where you can. And I don't think I've seen one that has. Like, even in Midway, there was a few cycles, but not enough by the end of the movie, because it was a couple weeks of events. Whereas this one's like, no, there's been a couple weeks between each week.
Yeah.
And in those couple weeks, quite a few kids didn't go home that day. And that is, I don't know, it's finally horrifying.
Yeah. Like, it's giving you a more realistic view of what this is like. And I think that's an important piece to put forward. And I think at some point we definitely need a Navy version of this as well. Because, I don't think people see the Air Force and they think, most of the time they're probably sitting around drinking.
Stop calling them the Air Force.
Okay.
It's not the Air Force.
Okay, so you see aviators.
Yes, this leads to the Air Force, this does, but these guys were Army. These guys also, they didn't... Okay, it's an insult because the modern day Air Force, most of these guys fly drones now. They are literally flying from desks.
No,
like,
not most. They can't afford most. It's a very, very minimal portion, but they're the most talked about because they never have
the
equipment failure.
drones are
for them.
used
Yeah.
the most because they don't
Used the most, but that doesn't mean the majority of aviators. Like
No,
those guys,
no, they
there's
still train
the
on
same
planes.
amount of
Absolutely,
pilot.
yeah. There's a lot of pilots, but the pilots that flew in World War II, they didn't get the luxury of 40,000 feet. They had to fly through literal flak. So it's basically like fighting on the ground in World War I, but instead of no man's land, it's no man's sky. But
But
that's
it
basically the equivalent. So it's like they're
like-
not Air
it's
Force.
like-
They're
You're in a-
aviators.
you're in a-
They're
you're in a
flyboys,
tank,
pilots.
basically.
It's basically it's a flying tank.
Unfortunately, Parker, it is the Air Force because in this one so far, I think he's Light Colonel or Colonel LeMay. Later goes on to become the first general of the Air Force.
Right. This is the Air Force's
So
early.
and
this is prenatal Air
this
Force.
This is one of his commands.
This is
'Cause
prenatal
he's
Air Force.
been
They're
piloting all their
technically
main
they're
missions, so
technically the
therefore-
army. They're
Well,
technically
no,
would
army
you-
flyboys.
Would you be okay with
but this is
proto Air
technically the
Force?
Proto Air
of
Forces,
the Air
yes.
Force.
Yes, because then
Well,
we could
no, because
identify. Then we should identify Proto Air Forces, basically the same guys on the battlefield, but instead of running through a field and getting shot at, you're flying through the air. You have no cover. They had no cover whatsoever.
We
They're
haven't denigrated that at all.
right. No,
That's-
okay,
that's
but
the
it
part we're
does
talking
because ever since World War II, the Air Force. No, Korea was also, I'd say, because devotion shows that Korea was
Better
pretty rough too.
helicopter crews. I mean,
Yeah. Proto Badger
Well-
says, "Did someone say Proto?" Lol.
Did.
Yeah.
well,
Exactly. No, it's not till because after about 1980s spy plane era, then the Air Force
but there hasn't been a war since, so the Air Force hasn't been tested in reality.
the Air Force
And that's
isn't
the
gonna
grossest part about it is they've
okay,
just
but
been
even Top Gun
serving its
Top Gun
tyrannical
shows that it's
CIA.
not even a contest, okay? It's
Right, and that's
why I don't
That's-
like calling them the Air Force, because the modern day Air Force doesn't actually, they are not putting their lives at risk comparatively to like actual Marines, for example. Or
right, but these are the guys
SEALs
that
or-
inspired the modern Air Force, and that's
Yes, but they're
and
not.
literally like
I like Proto
under the
Badger, air
command of the guy
jockeys.
who fathered it. Like, all I'm saying is, like, this is the father who then used all of their work to justify the Air Force budget as its own entity.
Yeah. No, just think of it like this. This is the army. Airplanes or whatever. This is basically the proto Air Force is basically like that masculine bodybuilder tough guy dad, right? And then this tough guy dad gives birth to a weenie son, and that's the Air Force. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I mean, to some extent, but that's mostly due to just lack of leadership
Or
and
father's a
lack of
weenie
talent.
son. Sorry, I shouldn't be able to give birth, but that's my point.
Again, cheap is that goes back to the whole cheap thing. Like, the thing about General LeMay is he was a pilot on the battlefield before he was a colonel.
General
of the
LeMay was
battlefield.
more of a pilot than any modern Air Force pilot currently, and that's just
Right,
that's
but
what it
he was
comes down
also
to.
the guy that called for indiscriminate bombing of Vietnam, and also the guy that literally just cared about, like, he was the Klingon of all American generals. Like, even Chesty Puller was like, yo, dude, pull it back.
Jeez. And that's in your bloodline.
Both of them.
Welcome to the Psychopath Brothers. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, my point is, as we can see in the show, okay, like current Air Force does not have the risks that these guys flying have. That's what I was trying to get my point across, was like that. So it's like, you guys call these guys Air Force. To me, it's like it's a slap in the face to their service. But that's just because, like I said, modern Air Forces, they're, like I said, they literally fly desks now. And if you're a drone pilot, you are literally flying from a desk. It's playing video games.
But you're actually in charge of killing people all because some guy tells
and
you
I
that that's
may
the
or may not
person
have
to
watched
kill.
some
And
of
that's
them
the
do it.
most disgusting part is it's still kids carrying out the killing. Well, the guys at the top make
Oh, it's
all
even
the
worse
money
now.
off all
It's
the
even
money.
more dehumanized because you're separated now behind the screen. Like that's why, you know, let's capitulate for 1 second here, John. The reason why it is hard not to get all super heroic America F yeah when it comes to World War II it is because, you know, between World War II and I guess you could say Vietnam and Korea, you know, those were kind of like the last seemingly justifiable wars of the modern era, so to speak. But even then, you know.
But science shows us and facts show us none of them were justified and that they were all started and
Yeah, I don't know
run
where
by...
I was going with that. I give up.
Exactly.
Forget
That's
it.
the part about this is that was all propaganda.
But that's the thing. It's easy to get
We
into
were
that
all
because
bought and
even though there was propaganda, John, and even though it was unnecessary, it was still real. It still happened, and these guys literally went through literal hell, as we see on these movies and shows. So it does a good job of showing.
I'm saying, as somebody who is inspired by people like this, by shows like this, don't.
Yeah.
Because I was inspired by propaganda, and I
Yeah.
was wrong, and now I'm trying to prevent everybody else from following in my footsteps. And
that's why I always tell people, like, if you really feel the need to join the military and serve your country proudly, then pick either the Coast Guard or the Navy, or even the Air Force. But if you go to the Army, at the same time, well, it's, I don't know. 90% of the military is logistics anyway, so it's like, really, if you really, unless you really want combat, chances are you're gonna end up, you know, in a warehouse or something like that. Like, and that's okay.
That's why my rule is, if you want your butt kicked because you know you're a degenerate who needs to be brightened out, join the Marines. Otherwise, if you need a free ride for school, join the one that does the clubs you like the most. Army for walking, Air Force for talking, Navy for sailing.
Navy and even the Coast Guard, you will see places. I can guarantee you will travel the world in the Coast Guard, even
Coast Guard for
I did.
bases. Goodness. Coast Guard has like every single like coastal state.
I got to serve my country in beautiful Key West, Florida, twice. Yeah, if you really feel you need to serve your country, do the Coast Guard.
And if you've never been to the coast, it's worth it. Trust me, it is awesome.
Actually, but that's what's funny, is even the Coast Guard, only about 20% is actual, like, guarding of the coast. Most of it's, like, well, no, because there's a lot of, like, actually, a lot of it's, like, the aids to navigation. This is what a lot of people don't know. Like actual search and rescue, because that's what people know, right? Because The Guardian's so amazing. Which, no, it's not. That movie's trash. We'll totally watch it sometime, but actually, that might be a fun live watch and react to do. That will be a fun live watch and react to do for me sometime. We may have to do that for this year's August. Yeah, Coast Guard Day. It could be fun. But, yeah, it's, where's I going with that? Oh, yeah, no, the Coast Guard doesn't have a lot of cool propaganda, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know.
But all of it's propaganda in terms of, like, join because you want to be a hero. No, be a hero in anything that you do.
Oh, no, they don't even do that anymore.
Sake.
I gotta give them credit for their ads. They literally say, oh, you want free schooling and you want a job and you want a career for at least 4 to 20 years? And they're not even shipping it as, you know, America and patriotism. That ship they understand is basically a sale at this point. Because yeah, it's like, you want to pay me to kill people? I don't feel like that's necessary anymore. All right, we are now down to the last 5 minutes. Does anybody want to shout out or promote anything? It's
Well, I just figured I'd preview Rogue Council for this week. I'm asking all the guests for the Rogue Council, bring us your favorite Art Bell segments. Right? Like, hop into the old Coast to Coast episodes, and, you know, whatever you felt was, like, your favorite Art Bell moment, let's do a tribute to Art Bell, man. The king of the paranormal AM radio.
Yeah, no, I think I'll have to just pick a random segment, and so will John, and we'll go from there and bring a segment from that.
I have a couple good ones. I liked his one that he did when he was the first to talk to Bob
Lazar.
Yeah. It was a really fun one. Mostly because like I love his radio voice. He knows how to keep everybody, like, his questions sound exciting. Like, yeah, that's actually what I was thinking to ask him.
Yeah.
But like, I've loved a lot of his guest spots. Like, I've listened to him on a couple podcasts across. I liked him the most on the paranormal. One of them. I can't remember what it's called, but it goes into a lot of the paranormal stories. And he did a big talk with the other alien ufologist, the guy that got the YouTube or Netflix documentary and really restarted this whole thing, the Youngblood.
Yeah.
Those two did a podcast together, and that was a lot of fun, where they actually just spitballed their theories. So yeah, I got a couple good ones for that.
Cool. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Proto Badger, Glinda, Don Rangers Power, Drake and Blaze Gaming, and Nemesis of Eden. Good to see you. I think I remembered everybody this time. If I didn't, I'm sorry. Thank you, of course, to our lurkers who hang out in the back, and of course, everybody who watches the replay. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, all that stuff that you just takes a quick moment of your time. Doesn't cost you a penny, just a couple of clicks. Proto Badger says, sorry I was late. Well, you know what? Make it up by being early next week, and we'll call it even. And so, yeah, no, we do appreciate you guys being here in the comments section. I do like bringing you guys into the discussion, and we do try to make it a point to read y'all's fan mail and keep you part of this, because we like to do content. So, we're going to start adding more content blocks. And so, with that, please send your suggestions for content to thewriterbrothers@gmail.com. If someone wants to throw that in the chat, that'd be appreciated. Sorry, go ahead, Skogly.
We're nothing without the chat.
I mean, we're each other, and I have fun talking to these three guys, and I will still have fun talking to these three guys, whether anybody shows up or not. But, you know, we'd like to grow. We'd like to do this full time.
That's what it's all about.
We'd like to have more segments and more hours to talk long segments, but, you know, one step at a time. But I think for next week...
Here, I'll put it this way. I'm out of a lot of shows. I just started getting into anime. So if the chat could help me out with some suggestions.
We already have a 30-minute anime block on the Friday show. So that's already a start. We could definitely look into it. But I think So yeah.
We could use your suggestions. Like, I'm legitimately asking. I've watched almost everything I like.
Well, and yeah, we want to get y'all's input, but I'm Peter York, the Writer Brothers. See you when I see you. Good night. This has been a presentation of the Writer Brothers Tuesday Night Live Show. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Rami, check your email. Good night.